Welcome to our virtual format of Talking Trash Community Chat Online Edition with Waste Check. So we are here to answer your questions. So did you bring anything with you today, Lisa?
No, I was just thinking of it.
Oh, okay.
So I know what I know what it is.
Okay.
I just didn't bring it with me.
So what is it that you're wondering?
Oh shoot, now that I know the bubbles there that you pop, they're the packing stuff.
Like this? This is the packing envelope. And then
Yeah, but
have
that stuff.
bubble wrap.
Where does it go? Bubble wrap,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's a really good question. I actually had to look this one up at first. So bubble wrap is in Recycle Coach app, and it is a recyclable item in our system.
Okay.
Yeah.
After you pop all the little things.
I have not in the past.
No, I'm talking because it's fun to pop them.
I know. That's a really good question. Maybe here. Let's see here. Amy, would you be able to answer that?
You mean if they're popped?
Yeah, do you need to pop all of them before they go in the recycling?
Oh, no, not at all. They can go in popped or not popped.
But so yeah, they are fun to pop. I do agree. So yeah, so bubble wrap is recyclable in our system. Actually, what's a really good thing too, living in Southwest Nova Scotia, a lot of us have older homes, is that they actually do help to keep down some of the cold and bring in some of the heat during the winter months if you put them on your windows. So just
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah, I've heard of that.
I have tried it. Yes. So especially in my living room where I'm south facing windows, this is actually a really great option on my windows on those colder days.
Okay.
Yeah. So I do have a bin O stuff. So do you have any other questions or things you've ever wondered, where does it go?
Not off the top of my head. No.
Not off the top of your head. Well, it's canning season, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we know that we get a lot of questions about jars. I don't have a mason jar, but I do have a good example here of a glass jar that can be reused for canning. So one of the questions we get a lot is, what do we do with the lid? Right. So here I have the lid, and it's a two material item. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
So
did.
so the inside of the lid is that rubber seal. So when you're canning, right, the heat will create that seal and the lid will pop in. However, when you go to dispose of it, it's not easily separated for recycling. So this becomes a garbage item. However, the jars are great for reusing this time of year, especially if you're canning, if you're doing any dehydrating of powders, you can reuse this easily to put away those little extras for the winter months.
Okay. What about the rings of the canning jars?
So those rings, if they have a rubber, some of them do, if I remember. Yeah, so those are going to be garbage also. So, but if you have the older lids that don't have the rubber, I believe those are reusable to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot easier to reuse than the ones without the rubber. However, they would be a plastic, metals, and glass container recycling at that time.
Okay.
So then you have, of course, the ring top, which is single material. So
It's what?
the ring that you the top that you screw on.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so
Yeah,
that,
because sometimes I do reuse the ring
yeah.
thing there, but after a while it gets very rusty. So I'm
Yeah,
like,
they do
where
that.
does it go? So it would
So
go into recycling?
yeah, plastic, metals, and glass recycling.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So I have some new items that I collected throughout the week. And one of those items I was really excited to share for our where does it go is we get a lot of questions about our well, not our, but about compostable coffee pods that people are able to purchase in our stores. And a lot of the the brands now say some of them have compostable version. And what I wanted to point out is that anyone who purchases a compostable product should really be aware of the fine print. So it says check locally as these do not exist in many communities. So in regards to composting, you should always, if something is listed as compostable or recyclable, you should always check or confirm with your recycling facility or your compost facility, or in this case, waste check, whether it's accepted or not in the facility. So this is what it is listed as compostable. Of course, it's not compostable. And we're going to open it and look at the pod, right? So when we open and look at the pod, the ring is plastic-based ring. The top feels like plastic. So it does say BPI compostable, and BPI is a plastic, right? So if you are intent on recycling these as much as possible, you can open up and take out your coffee grounds, and then the rest would go into your garbage. That would actually help keep that organic matter out of the landfill, which is one of our goals.
Okay.
And then the same thing when we look at, I have my little bin here, our classic coffee pods, right? So we have our classic coffee pods, and these can be recycled. So the top is a very small aluminum. I would put that in the garbage because it's just so small to capture. But if you cut it open, you can remove the grinds on the inside and put those into your compost. Again, you're avoiding, I have that virtual background here. So you're avoiding having those organics going to your compost system, to your landfill, and they're going into your compost. And then the cup can be recycled in your plastics, metals, and glass recycling. So I think those are questions we get really often that are important to, address when they do come up.
Okay. Okay. What about things like pottery or Corel dishes?
They
If
are
they're
garbage.
broken,
They are
darn.
garbage. Yeah, but
Okay.
like anything else that's broken that has the potential to cut someone or to harm someone, or like our haulers on the curbside, we
Yeah.
ask that you find a way to secure them. A paper, like a box, put it in.
Yeah.
Actually, what I've been using, because I am an avid coffee drinker, and Maxwell House is my brand. So this here is, it's not recyclable. It's a garbage item. So I'm finding ways to reuse these. So the way that I found to reuse these is to use them for my broken items, broken cups, glasses, Corel, light bulbs that are a bit broken and need to go into the recycling, need to go garbage. And then I have the lid that I put back on it, tape it down right, broken glass, things like that. So at least it's getting filled, right?
Yeah.
So these are really good items to use for broken items. Two material items that go to garbage because they're not easily recyclable. But what is the question of two material items that are not easily, that, can be easily separated? So what I look at for me is I bought a product, a hand cream, and it came with the plastic and the cardboard, box board surround. And that brought up my question of what is easily separated for recycling? How do we, bring this information to our residents? So easily recyclable is pieces that you can easily pull apart. And here we go with the screen. It's a little bit difficult. It kind of needs an angle, right? So this plastic can actually be easily pulled out of the cardboard. And what's really great is along the edges, if you see, there's no paper stuck to it, right? So it's just clean plastic edges. So this is an item that I would consider in my garbage to be easily separated for recycling. I would just tear off the cardboard and then put the plastic in the plastic smells like glass recycling bag, and paper in the paper bag. So we all know this isn't always the norm, is that when we're separating paper and plastic packaging, that a lot of residual paper is going to be left over on the plastic. So if it's really excessive, then that would be considered garbage. Okay, so if
Yeah.
it's really, and also like when we talk easily separated, we know coffee can is not easily separated. You really do need a hacksaw to get the bottom and the lid and the lip off, and
Mm.
the inside is foil. We can't really peel that out to capture all of those materials for recycling. So
Okay.
yeah, so the idea of easily separated for the purpose of recycling would be, really not a high effort item.
So
So
like envelopes with the windows.
actually, that's a really great question. So envelopes with the windows, they allow us to leave the windows in for recycling purposes. Same with Kleenex boxes. Uh, they find that that's considered minor. So now the plastic in the Kleenex box doesn't have to be removed.
So you can
Yeah,
put that in your paper.
yeah.
Well,
We want
shut
to
the
make
front door. I didn't know.
we want to make it easy, right? I know in the
Yeah.
early days there was a lot of different,
Mm,
requirements, but we want to make recycling as simple as possible for our residents. We don't want it to be an item that it adds more work to their day at the end of the day. So one of the other things, what else did we have to do in the early days is we had to remove the labels, right, from our cans. So of course, reasonably clean, doesn't need to be dishwasher clean, doesn't need to be scrubbed and dried. So give it a good rinse, make sure that there's no food, have it at least dry to go into your bag. But if the label remains on like this, it's not a
mm.
problem. So that can go into your recycling bag as is. Okay. But if the label gets like all soggy, falls off in the process, because like I do things like leave it in my sink when I'm cooking until I'm ready to clean it, and by then sometimes the labels come off, I just squeeze out the water and throw it in my compost bin.
So
So
what about the cat food cans there with the flip top lid? Does the lid go in the recycle also?
I don't feed my cat that kind of food, so I'm trying to remember what is the inside look like. So is it
I don't
metal?
know.
If it's
I
pure
think
metal,
it's metal.
yeah,
Yeah.
that would be the same. Try and secure the lid. That lid edge is cutting, right?
Mm,
So if you can put it back in a can and squeeze the can closed so the lid doesn't travel, but it's not a problem. Those are recyclable, yes. So it's a tin
okay.
can, it's a tin product, yes. Same thing when I take the lid off of this can, I would put it back in the can, squeeze it closed, and put it into my plastics, metals, and glass recycling.
Mm.
So there's a lot of items that I think people, we want to make sure that we're making it, so that we're capturing the most. So we don't want people to feel overwhelmed. So in this case, this jar, if we're going to recycle it in our plastics, metals, and glass paper container recycling program, we wouldn't ask the resident to wash off the label, right?
Mm.
Or to remove the label in the process. That becomes quite labor intensive, and we want to make this, a simple process for everybody. So I would, so the labels no longer have to come off. So, and it's the same thing. I often get asked that question when when we're talking about plastic clamshell type recycling these containers, right? So there is a label on it, and residents want to know, do they need to take that label off? And they don't, right? So again, reasonably clean, shake it out, give it a quick rinse. If the label comes off in the washing process, take it off. If not, leave it on the container. So those are some of the tips and tricks, right? And another question we get a lot of is how do they get confused as to what is garbage? And I think the easiest way when we're looking at garbage, I already use my coffee can, right? But I'm going to go to my Pringles can. Uh, is how many materials, right? So plastic needs to be recycled with plastic, metal needs to be recycled with metal, glass needs to be recycled with glass. So you can't mix a paper recycling with a metal recycling. So the first thing that I ask people is, especially when they bring an item to look at, is what is it made of? What is that material? Like, how many materials is that item made of? And they'll look at it and say, okay, well, it's got metal for the wire, or, it's got plastic and it's got metal on it. Okay, can you take it apart for recycling? And if you pull on it, it doesn't come apart. It's not easily separated for recycling. So that becomes a garbage item. So that's one of the first things that I look at. Is there chemicals like on paper towels? Did you use Windex or did you use vinegar when you were washing your windows, right? So that would tell me if it's got Windex on it. I'm going to want to divert that to my garbage bag, even though it is paper, but it has that chemical. But if I used vinegar, I'm going to divert it to my compost bin because it's a natural organic material. So some of the considerations that, we try to ask, give people those ideas to how to determine if something is garbage or not. One of the things I don't have, and I think I should get, is if we look at it, is an ointment tube, toothpaste tube. I get a lot of questions about that because people are like, but it's plastic, right? So what do I do with it? So in that process, if I were to look at it, it needs to be cleaned. Is that easily opened and cleaned for recycling? It's not, right? So I would have to like cut the top of the tube off, rinse it out. We know the tubes can go down, things get caught. So those are some of those ideas that we want to look at when we look at that. Is it going to be easy to recycle? Ointment tubes, toothpaste tubes, things like that are not easily recyclable. Hand cream tubes that cannot be rinsed out, like a bottle with a pump can be rinsed out, but a tube, would have to be kind of cut open to rinse out. So another thing is when we're looking at those items like pumps, like if you have a Windex bottle, right? The body of the bottle can be recycled, right? It's always best to buy refills and reuse it, but the body can be recycled, but the pump would not be able to be recycled because it's more than one material and would have to be disassembled to take out the pump action if there's a metal spring or things like that.
Okay.
So it's become a garbage item.
Okay. Have they figured out something yet for those little stickers on the apples and the bananas?
No, I don't think that they have. So yeah, that's another thing is also when you're composting is to try and be aware that those stickers are there and keep them out of our compost system. So yeah, it can
You'd
be.
think they would have figured out, the companies though, how to make something that is compostable. That teeny
Uh,
tiny little sticker.
yeah. So that I think that falls into that whole realm of uh like biodegradable and compostable. The system is not equipped to handle it here, so it would kind of leave contamination in that final product. So yeah, I don't know if there's any program on that. Hopefully we'll see something. So yeah, so I'm just trying to think here, Lisa. What are items?
Okay. I have a question about the compost bin. How do you get rid of the maggots?
So that's always a joy in the summer, right? We know that. So maggots are a natural byproduct of having flies fly in, lay eggs. And then of course they're growing and eating the meat and the protein that is rotting in your compost bin because that is their food source, right? So we want to kind of look at different options that at first that we kind of, what can we do? So in the summer, it's always best to kind of look at the location of your bin. So do we put that compost bin right in the full sun? It probably isn't the best idea because that heat is going to accelerate that decomposition. It's going to attract the flies. The flies are going to lay eggs and we go into that cycle, right? So we're going to want to look and see if we can place it in a cooler place in our yard. So, under a tree, outside of direct sunlight, if you have, like I have a very wooded area that I can go place it in. So that's one solution and also we want to keep the flies out. So keeping the flies out can be a bit tricky, right? We all know that. So using a yard bag and putting your food in it and rolling it down and closing it, not allowing the lid to be open all the time. That is going to allow the flies in, things like that. Just being aware of how you're managing your bin is also very helpful. I find for me, I use a little bit of lime powder that I get and I just sprinkle that on, but I also keep a yard bag in it And I found that adding leaves or yard waste also helps kind of reduce it. Freezing any meat byproducts, because that is where you're going to get the maggots. You're not going to get maggots from fruit and vegetable peelings or leaves or natural things like that. It's really that fat and protein and bones and that they form in. Try and freeze it in your freezer if you can until it's time for your compost to be collected. Another thing you can do is also try and time your fridge cleanouts with your compost date. So those items in the summer are not cooking inside that green bin during that period where you're waiting for your collection. So I think it's just managing and understanding and managing your compost bin to the best of your ability. A cool place in the yard, keep the lid closed, try and freeze some of the items, layer it with items like leaves or green or yard waste, grass clippings, things like that. Kind of to keep the flies from getting to that protein and laying their eggs. Roll down the rim. I get dollar store bags. I use a lot of these. This is a box for cracker box, cereal boxes. If I'm going to put things in, I'll close and then I'll try and close it up as much as possible. I'm really just trying to manage what's getting into my bin during those hot months. If you have chickens from experience, what I used to do too, when I would start getting a lot of maggots or things like that after my collection, I would lay my bin down in their pen and or somewhere in the yard where they were free ranging and they would go and eat them all for me. Crows will do that for you too if you put it down. Yeah, and yeah, a
Mine
lot of
is,
those, yeah.
yeah, the one, it's here at work. It's not the one at home. It's the one at here at work. So it's hard to,
It is
tell
harder to
people.
manage, yeah.
Yeah, considering we have people that think it's a garbage can when they come to visit, they dump their Tim Hortons cups and all that in it. It's like,
That's, yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
So, but
I think that's also a question of a lot of what we're seeing sometimes is, people are wanting to do better. So, a lot of labels of biodegradable and compostable. So people kind of get that idea that maybe all of that product line, like hot beverage cups or cold beverage cups from a fast food place are biodegradable and compostable, but they're not. So they all have a very thin plastic lining. And I do have a really great example here of what we see when we break down a cup. Yeah.
So the garden line, Lisa, would probably be your best option for the one at work. Like during
say that again, Amy. What did you say?
the garden line would probably be your best option for
Okay.
work because it would dry them up right away and then it takes that away from it during the
Yeah, that lime is, yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
again set on top of the food and where the maggots are just to keep it contained.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's really a question of containment, right? I think one of the biggest things that I always come away with is make sure my lid is closed and those bags are rolled down and it's all we're kind of separating. And I know it's not always easy, especially in a public place. People come, leave the lid open, dump things in it. So it does become, a bit harder to manage.
Yeah. Yeah. We freeze it most of the time, but it's just sometimes things get it. And I hadn't seen maggots here yet, except for the last time. Oh my Lanta.
Yeah.
There was maggots in that bin. I don't know what went in there, but oof.
Yeah. And like I said, that a lot of the time, so that's the same idea of when you're doing home composting, right? So in home composting, I home compost. I don't have a hot system, so I try and keep out anything that is fat-based or dairy-based or meat-based or out of my compost so that I don't attract critters or I don't attract flies and end up with a lot of maggots in my home compost. So yeah, it would be those little solutions to try and get down to that point. So those are kind of some of the suggestions we have. If people have other suggestions, I would love to hear them because it is something that we do and I think residents do struggle with throughout the summer months here. So.
Okay.
So I think that's about it. We're looking at the end of our session. So thank you very much, Lisa, for joining us. Do you have any last questions before the end?
No,
No?
no, you pretty much answered them all.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us today.